Guys, if you haven't noticed, women have been lied to. I've been doing this Ladies Night podcast for the last year with my co-host, and there's 10 points that I've noticed keep popping up over and over again. These recurring lies that women subscribe to that they believe wholeheartedly, which do not serve them. And in this video, I want to cover these 10 frequent lies that keep popping up over and over again with these conversations we have with the gals. The first one that I've seen that keeps coming up over and over again is the notion that you can have it all, okay? Women have been told through culture, society, music, Hollywood, all of this stuff has been infused in them in the notion that they can go out, get degrees, climb a corporate ladder, buy a house, be a cat mom, a dog mom, a mommy, a wife, a career-driven woman, like all the way down the list. And you can have it all, but you just can't have it all at the same time. And I don't think that society is truthful with women. I think that it lies to women, which is what is a strong contributor to the horrible results that they're getting, which you're going to start to see as we go through the other 9 points. All right, now the second thing that I've noticed that pops up over and over again is that women are told this lie that they are beautiful at any size, that there's no unattractive women, there's no unattractive weights, that you are gorgeous no matter what you look like. And I think women inherently know that this isn't true, but because this has been told so many times over and over again, you see it a lot with pop culture, especially with musicians. Lizzo, I think, would be a very strong example of, oh, look at her, she's so strong and brave. You see the headlines all the time, and nothing's further from the truth. Throughout the entirety of history, and even today, and will go well into the future, into perpetuity, men are attracted to strong cues of fertility, youth, beauty, tight skin, a good hip to waist ratio, breasts, all of these things, you know, the hourglass look that guys are so fond of and have always been fond of will never go away. And no amount of you're beautiful at any size is ever going to change that. No amount of putting any size on the cover of beauty magazines is ever going to change that. No amount of giving beauty pageants awards to women that are not even biological women. In fact, we've seen men being given beauty pageant awards lately. So understand that this simply is not true. Now, the third lie that I've heard told to women over and over again is that you can basically get whatever you want just like a man can. More specifically, be as promiscuous as men are if you want, ladies. And I think that's incredibly bad advice. Women over the last several decades have been told they can go out and do it all and they can just behave like men. They can be as promiscuous as men without any consequences whatsoever. And that's simply not true. Women, when they engage in promiscuous sex on a frequent basis, run the very real risk of pregnancy. Now, some of that has been mitigated today because we do have a lot of left-leaning states and provinces where things like relatively safe pregnancy termination is legal and free. But the fact still remains that there are consequences for choices. And if you engage in promiscuous behavior as a woman, you lower your value. A man's value is created out of making something out of himself, out of doing something of some significance with his life. Men have no inherent value when they're born. Women's value is created upon birth by their purity, by their beauty. That's why throughout history, you know, women have always been preserved and protected. They've always been the protected sex, if you will. And fathers have always gone out of their way to make sure that their daughters aren't running around or being abused in an intimate fashion. Now, all of that's been thrown out the window today. We have a lot of kids that are raised in single-parent households, more specifically single-mother households. A lot of girls are now being told, run around and have fun and indulge and hook up, and this culture is rampant today. And we've seen the data on this. It doesn't matter where you go, it's all consistently the same. And the same doesn't reflect true for men, but for women, the chances of them having a divorce or an unhappy marriage go up significantly if they've had a promiscuous past. The chances of them cheating on their husband go up significantly after 4 past partners. Believe it or not, yeah, the number's that low. I think it's like 9.6%, but the chances of a woman cheating on her husband are almost tenfold after 4 partners. So female promiscuity doesn't come without consequences. There are consequences to all choices, and promiscuity is not a good one to make. It is an unwise choice for women. Think about it, ladies. There's never been a guy that's been in a marriage that thought to himself, gee, I wish my wife had been with 100 more guys before I married her, right? All right, the fourth lie that's been told to women is that Mr. Right is always out there waiting. You hear this notion of something along the lines of, well, you know, he'll come along when he comes along, or You know, Mr. Right will just show up when he shows up if I'm just, you know, going about my life and doing my thing, and that's simply not true. Women have to be intentional about if they want to have a family and to raise children or to be married, and to go about it in a very thoughtful way, if I can put it that way. But that's usually just cast aside. It's, you know, go get my degrees, climb the corporate ladder, buy the Tesla, the house, become a cat or dog mom to my pets sort of thing. And then maybe at some point he'll show up. Now, the problem with that is guys just don't show up, you know, in scenarios like that. I think women need to be able to put themselves in the right rooms. And I talk about that with the gals on Ladies Night. Maybe we can do another video on that, or we can, you know, dedicate something to that in the future. But Mr. Right is not lying in waiting for you. You're going to have to preserve your value and put yourself in an environment where Mr. Right will be. And then in some sense or regard, find a way to pair bond and seduce him so that he chooses you, right? Because it's guys that are going to have to propose to you over anything on a long-term basis. Although you do need to indicate to them interest as far as a commitment, you know, like wanting to claim them. Women need to claim the guy, but guys, at the end of the day, if there's going to be something that turns into a marriage or a proposal, are the ones that usually invite her into his life. All right, the fifth lie that women have been told is the notion that it's okay to be a challenge or disagreeable. In fact, it's often encouraged. I've had this conversation with several hashtag sort of boss girls. You know, you see this hashtag trending on social media. And realistically, there's no guy out there that's putting a dent in the universe, going out there, putting out fires, solving problems, making money, networking, you know, doing all the things that are needed to be done, that want to come home to a disagreeable, bossy wife. They don't want a challenge when they come home. They want a place of peace and refuge. But unfortunately, a lot of these boss girls have been told, you know, be a challenge to him. Challenge him on certain ideas. That might seem sexy or cool to some women for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. But again, you know, in my social network with all the guys that I hang out with, the last thing that we want to deal with, and the complaints that I hear most often that pop up with, is the old ball and chain, or she's difficult, or she's disagreeable. We don't want that. We want peace. We want serenity. We want a woman that's a complement to our life, not the focus, not one that's going to bring complexity in our life. Peace and serenity is what guys are after. All right, the sixth lie that women have been told is the notion that you will peak into your 30s and 40s. Absolutely not true. Men and women are on different timelines. Men can peak into their late 30s and even early 40s. Women, however, because their value is different, again, women's value is based on their purity because they're beauty objects to men. Men's value is based on their success. Men are success objects to women. This isn't me saying this. This is researchers concluding this from years and years of data. It's just the reality of the world that we live in. So thinking that you're peaking in your 30s or 40s is simply not true. One of women's strongest values, one of the strongest draws that men have to women is their fertility, because we look for fertility cues in women. Hip to waist ratio, full breasts, full lips, clear skin, youth and beauty, and all of those things come in young age. As you get older and collagen starts to disappear and gravity takes into effect and fertility starts to drop, we all know that a woman's fertility at 40 is far, far, far lower than what it is when she's at 20. Her capacity to get pregnant and carry a pregnancy to term safely for both the mom and the child is extremely low in her 40s, even if she is still dropping eggs. So it's incredibly important that women understand that their peak actually comes, it's around the age of 23. And I know women hate this. They lose their mind when they hear this. Oh, you're misogynist, you're sexist. That's not true. It's not me saying this. Again, I'm just going over the data and all the stuff that we've seen in Evo Psych over the years. And cross-culturally, cross-continent, regardless of religion, when they survey and they ask men from every single culture around the world, even the Amazonian natives, they all routinely and collectively pick, when given an opportunity to look at women from the age of 20 all the way up into their 70s, they routinely pick about 22 to 23. Again, that's not me making this decision. It's the world making this decision. This is what men respond to. So women peak in their early 20s. Men, they peak a little bit later in their life, but they still go on the decline. We still all have an expiry date. Our looks all do go downhill, but because men's value has a lot to do with our success and our resources, and women has a lot more to do with their youth and beauty, you can see why we're on different timelines. Now, the next slide that I've heard is that if the guy doesn't want you, gal, he's the problem, not you. But here's the thing. How many of these women have I talked to in the Ladies Night podcast that have been in their 30s and even early 40s, where they've been told this notion over and over again that they have to keep choosing a new guy and something better, or some new guy out there will solve the problem? The problem is If you keep going through guy after guy after guy after guy, clearly the common denominator is you as the gal. It's not the guys. So thinking that it's everybody else out there that's the problem and you've never done anything wrong, that there's no accountability that you should take for yourself, is an absolutely absurd notion. Women need to learn the notion of accountability. There's a joke out there, you see all these guys all the time talking about it. It's like accountability is like kryptonite to women. They really don't like it or they don't want to acknowledge it. But let's be honest, if you're in your late 30s or 40s as a gal and you've never been in a long-term relationship or had a guy want to commit to you over a long term or have a family with you, if that's what you're after, the problem isn't with men, the problem is with you. There's something there within you that you're missing that is causing guys to walk away. Remember, I've said this many times before, men do not walk away from great women. We just don't. If we're able to secure a good gal, we hold on to that. We don't let her go. Remember that, ladies. All right, and the next slide that pops up over and over again is that your career should be your priority. This is such bad advice to women. If you're going to spend several years, maybe even a decade, getting multiple degrees so that you can become a licensed professional, frame several pieces of paper in mahogany with little letters after your name saying how important you are to the world when people come over and they see it, and you climb a corporate ladder, that's not going to get you the family or the children that you desire, especially when you get into your 30s and you have baby rabies and you're thinking about, all my family's having kids, it's time for me to sort of do that. Well, if you've set aside the last decade or even two, climbing the corporate ladder, making money and paying taxes, you're basically at the end of your runway. I always find it amusing that toxic feminism tells women to never serve a man or never do anything for the express pleasure or benefit of a man, but they're happy to go into the corporate workforce and serve a guy that's their boss and line his pocket with golds. Never mind serving a guy in his household and raising his children and nurturing them and forming a family unit. Go into the corporate workspace and go and climb that corporate ladder and make that guy rich and serve that dude. That's okay. Pay taxes, that's okay. But serving a household and children, bad idea. The other one that blows me away is the notion that women can manifest success, happiness, and so on and so forth. Whether they've been told to get certain energy crystals or sun their bunghole or whatever it is, never leave your destiny in the chances of hope or some sort of spirit or energy, if you know what I'm saying. Be a little more intentional with life, ladies. All right, and the 10th and final lie that women are often told, I've seen this pop up so many times, is you can have kids at any age. You see this in the media, in pop culture, where you see popular musicians or actors or certain icons or influencers having children into their 40s, and in some cases beyond, as crazy as that might sound. Freezing their eggs. It's funny, I've had so many conversations with women now where they talk about, I'm 37 and maybe one day the right guy will come along, and I'm really glad I froze my eggs at 33 or something like that. Nothing frozen is better than fresh. There's no chef that reaches for the frozen peas out of the freezer if he's making a world-class dish. He wants fresh peas. Thawed peas are still peas, but they're not as good as fresh peas. You see what I'm saying here? You can, and some women have, had children later on in life. I think the oldest woman that had a child was into her 50s. You're going to run into problems more often than not versus a healthy, fit, fertile 20-year-old. If your goal in life is to have a family and have children, it's not a wise choice to put that off, hoping you can do it later under the microscope where they, make these things happen and then they go and inject it in you with a turkey baster. People do it. Not the wisest choice in my estimation.
All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the Courses tab. Newer to the channel? Hit subscribe.